All right, so our last speaker for today is Dave Van. He's going to be giving us a talk on how hackers think, past, present, and future.
All right, thank you. This is it. I waited all day. I know what it is. There's beer out there, isn't there? Yeah, I heard that rumor too. All right. So, bearing in mind the fact that you've all been here for at least 8 hours, including the wonderful fire alarm event, I want to try to make this brief, or at least as brief as I possibly can. So I want to talk a little bit today about the mindset of a hacker. All right. First, we want to talk a little bit about what a hacker is. What they have been, what they are now, what we call a hacker. They go by a lot of different names. By the way, anyone can identify the logo? Yeah, you don't count. Anybody else? There it is. Now you have to Google that to figure out what that is. Close, but not quite. So what do we call it? You know, we use the terms hackers and crackers and freakers and, you know, white hat hackers and black hat hackers and gray hat hackers. And then we got script kiddies. Anybody want to admit to being one of those? Nobody? Yeah, really? You got to start somewhere, right? And then, of course, there's the infamous 31337s. Then it kind of progressed as we went along and we got into the computer age. And it became anybody who has an understanding of code or programming and enjoys, you know, decompiling and modifying and recompiling code. And then we shortened it down to just somebody that likes to break into computers. This is a classic hacker. When you say the word hacker, at least to a lot of people, this is what they think of, do they not? Except for the folks that are hooked on Mr. Robot. Any Mr. Robot fans in the room? Almost everybody. Yeah, they lost me after season 1. It got a little too, a little too dark. We have to watch out for stereotypes. Not all hackers are 20-somethings living in their mom's basement, living on Mountain Dew, Red Bull, and cold pizza. Believe it or not, there are hackers who wear suits when they go to work. There are hackers who wear uniforms when they go to work. Right? There are some that don't wear anything when they go to work. Those are the ones you have to be really concerned about. But we have to watch for the stereotypes. Because if you're thinking that you can use the profile of a hacker and use a stereotype, you're going to be sadly mistaken. Right? Oh yeah, another tidbit. Not every hacker uses a Mac. Even though a Mac is the only known laptop that can actually successfully negotiate a network protocol connection with an alien mothership. Oh, come on, guys. It's 5 o'clock in the evening on a Friday night. We've not had beer yet. What influences those stereotypes? Where do they come from? Right? Why is it that the public, when they think of hackers, this is what they think of? Where do these perceptions come from? How are they generated? How are they applied to us? For the security professionals in the room, somebody asks you, what do you do for a living? What do you do for a living?
be surprised. I'm actually a doctorate and university professor.
Doctor and university professor. Okay. You, sir, what do you do for a living? You're a student. Okay. You? Network engineer. Have you ever asked anyone, hey, what do you do for a living? They say, oh, I'm a hacker. No, they don't. Right? It's also dangerous for the industry. And I'm going to put my businessman hat on for just a minute. When we're trying to bring people into this industry, you're a network administrator, right? How hard is it to recruit a network administrator? All right. You're a student. Do you want to be a network administrator when you graduate? Yeah? No, I just want a job. I don't care what it is. I just got this heavy debt load. I got to get rid of it. Now, if I come to somebody and I say, hey man, how would you like to be a pen tester for a living? Oh yeah, I'm in, man. I get to be a hacker and I get paid for it. What could be better? Well, that would be to be a hacker, get paid for it, and not have to get dressed to go to work. We make it glamorous. And the media, the movies, they make it all exciting. Are there any pen testers in the room? Is it exciting? Is it a little bit more like being a firefighter? You ask a firefighter, you're like, oh man, that must be the most exciting job ever. Well, it is. At about 2% of the time. The rest of the time, you're sitting around cooking dinner for everybody else and polishing your truck. Right? Pen test, same way. You spend a lot of time doing the mundane work before you find that just little bit of excitement. But if you look at the stereotypes and you look at how it's portrayed in the media, it's all this exciting. And every exploit you use works immediately without fail. First clicked. Boom. Need a password? No problem. Got it. Oh, you need me to shut down the security system in the 200-story office building next door? Let me whip out my iPhone and do that for you right now. They make it look easy. They make it look glorified. And it's not necessarily that way. And I'm not doing that, am I? There's not an earthquake going on or something we should know about. Oh, okay. All right. So we're going back to our D&D character. Any D&D fans? All right. You get a room at any type of a tech conference, there's going to be at least one person. There has to be. Or wait a minute, is that a stereotype? Here's the personality traits that come along with that character being the tinkerer. One of the things that we will find is that there are some commonalities when we're talking about hackers, and I'm going to use that generic term, all right, because hackers can be multiple things when what we're looking at here. It can be the guy that's trying to break into a system, writing a malicious code. It can be, a wide variety. But they do have some similar traits. Who knows the name of a famous hacker? Is he good? Or just famous? Famous. Who is he? Kevin Mitnick. Now see, that's a guarantee. Alright? You ask that question. Is he famous or is he good? Is he a hacker? No? He was a great social engineer, right? Right? He wasn't the most technical person on earth, but he was a great social engineer. Sorry, I don't mean to speak in past tense. Right? He's an excellent social engineer. But he's not a hacker in that he's not on the keyboard, breaking things. But what does a social engineer and a coder, what do they have in common as far as a personality trait? I'm sorry? They think outside the box. That's number one. The first personality trait you're going to look for throughout the history of hackers is creativity. The next is critical thinking. Think back to the hackers who broke the Enigma machine, who broke the code. Were they hackers? You saw the movie. Would you call them hackers? Absolutely. Right? They wanted to break something to figure out what made it work, how it worked, reverse engineer it. That's hacking. So you've got to have this critical thinking process in order to break things down into smaller segments, see how they work, and then break them apart again to figure out how you can make it better. A little bit of logic helps because you do have to think in a sequence. Because eventually you're going to have to reverse that sequence. Right? Most hackers, social engineers, freakers, crackers, whatever you want to call them, most of this type are going to be very orderly in their thinking, but maybe not so in their actions. And I got to tell you, that's a tough room to be next to. If you can't hear me in the back, let me know. Wait a minute. If you can't hear me in the back and you care, let me know. Okay, good. All right. Last key feature or personality trait that you have to have in a hacker. They got to be persistent. Has anyone broken anything on the very first try? Ever? No. You have to stay at it. Persistence, perseverance, and eventually it becomes an obsession. But that's what drives the mindset. So how do we identify this mindset? What are we looking for? Everybody's heard now of some sort of profiling in criminal investigations, psychological profiling in criminal investigations. There may be a TV show or two about it. The same theory applies. And you can apply some of this same theory if you're investigating an event or an incident. It can tell you a bit about the type of individual that you are dealing with, or the type of group, or at least to help you identify some attributes within the attack. Because behavior reflects personality in most cases. If you've got someone who is highly sophisticated and executes an attack with a high degree of difficulty, do you think they're going to be more or less meticulous about their work? I watched a presentation where a gentleman stood up and said, I have absolute proof that the DNC hack from last year was conducted by the Russians. You ever heard that claim? Okay, he had some evidence. He said, first, the code was compiled in the same time zone as Moscow. So it must have been the Russians. Secondly, we found Cyrillic characters in the source code. Well, the only people that use Cyrillic characters, it must have been the Russians. And then within the code, we actually found the name of the very first head of the KGB. So there it is, definitive proof. That attack was launched by the Russians. I mean, the most some of the most sophisticated and trained and talented hackers in the world left 3 major clues to show that it was them. I don't know about you, but I don't buy it. When you're conducting an investigation and you're trying to think about the profile, you also have to watch for the obvious. Because in some instances, it's a red herring. I know I've actually done that. I have written things and I have planted red herrings within them to attribute them to others. Mine were somewhat less subtle than the people who perpetrated the DNC hack. All right, so some other things that'll tell you a little bit about the profile or the personality of the individual who's conducting an attack. Is it old code? If I'm using an old piece of code, what would it say about me? Other than the fact that I'm old, yes, I know. What's it say if I'm using old code? Does it mean that obviously I don't know what I'm doing because I'm not using the latest and greatest? It works! Exactly. There you go. If something works and it's tried and it's proven and it's true, why not use it again? Right? Not going to use any names, but we had a very large recent breach that did not use brand new 0-day code, did it? No. It had been out for years. Why did they use that to get in? Because it works. What's it say about the individual? Well, probably tells you that whoever launched that knows a few things about who they were going after. i.e., a lot of large organizations don't have the most effective patch programs in the world. A lot of patches were missed within this certain time frame. This exploit would actually take advantage of multiple missed patches. And if I start with old code and it doesn't work, I just work my way up. So you see the critical thinking, the thought process that goes along with that. Some of the other things that you want to consider. Would include a motive. What's the primary motivator of most people who hack today? It's money. Or is it? For those of you who've actually studied the history of cybersecurity, or have at least read about it, what was the initial motivation of the first hackers? Fame. Okay. It started out, I wanted to be the guy who broke into NASA. Or I wanted to put my group's logo on the website of the NSA. Right? It was all about the fame. Some of it was about, I want to be the first to do this. Oh, you're a man of your word. I know it's cruel. But they didn't have any bottled water. All right. When the next generation of hackers started looking at why they wanted to do these things, it became a cause. The cause became a few things. It was information should be free and accessible to everyone. Right? That's their cause. That's their agenda. So we want to make it available to everybody. Source code should just be published and everyone should have access to it. Nobody should be able to start a Microsoft company. Let's let everybody have the DOS operating system. Other agendas that came out of it. Free Kevin. Do you know how many viruses and worms and Trojans had that message embedded in them? Free Kevin. And how many people that actually launched those out had no idea who Kevin Mitnick even was? They just knew that he should be free. Right? And the fame of it. Right? That 15 minutes of being the guy who did this. Hey, I'm the guy that shut down the New York subway system for 2.5 hours. Oh, wow, that's cool, man. How'd you do that? And then, unfortunately, we took that fame and we turned it into money. Because there was a time when if you got busted and you were the guy who did something new, it was like having instant resume. Go to whoever you want, they give you a job. Except for maybe some of the 3-letter agencies. All right, so where do these threat ranges come from? Right. It's no longer just the guy in the basement, right, drinking the Mountain Dew, eating the cold pizza, and I just want to deface your website because I think your company is just terrible. Or I don't like your particular operating system. Or you've put flaws in your operating system and you haven't told people about it, so I'm going to expose it to the world. There's still the lone wolves out there. They still exist. But that's not the preponderance of where the threats are coming from. We now have nation states. We have trained professional teams of hackers that represent our country. Do you think the United States does that? Do you think we have trained hackers? Do you think there's anything or was anything that was once called the Air Force Information Warfare Center in San Antonio, Texas? Yeah, doesn't exist anymore, but it used to. We've been doing information warfare as a country since the 60s in various forms. The Russians are doing it. The Russians have been trying to hack as a military tool since they first got computers. Who are some of the other nation states that we hear about? Iran, China, North Korea. You notice a trend that for a period of time, we'll have a digital boogeyman. And you hear about them all the time. You know, China is hacking everything. China's not hacking everything, folks. China is selling us stuff so we can hack ourselves. You don't believe me? Go on to eBay, buy the cheapest tablet you can possibly buy, and see if that thing doesn't reset its time zone to Hong Kong at least once a month when it phones home. North Korea. This is a country that we could launch a denial of service attack on and take out most of the internet within the entire country overnight. Not saying we did that, but I'm saying we could. Okay, maybe we did. Do they have the capacity then to hack into our systems? Sure they do. Are they focusing on that as an attack vector? I would if I was them. It's a lot cheaper than building a nuclear weapon. And it can be just as effective. So we have to consider the sources. We've got the lone wolf. We've got nation states. We've got industrial espionage as a hacking platform. The French will tell you if they can get a hold of your corporate secrets on the internet, they're going to take them. You put it out there, why not? Give them access to it, they're going to pick it up. The other question we have to ask ourselves is, are we becoming more paranoid as we see these things happen? Or is the opposite happening? Are we actually becoming numb to this? The more events that we see, the more we hear about it in the news, the more we see it in the media, are we just becoming numb to it? Is that our new norm? All right, this has all been going on for a while. This is nothing new, is it? What's changing a bit is the technology. The motivation has changed ever so slightly. The tools are getting better, easier to use. But the personality type doesn't change. It's an interesting thought. You get different people involved. You get different people who want to do this. But the type, those traits are still there and you can watch for them. Look for that degree of complexity. Look for how neat and tidy the attack is. Right? Is it broad-based? Right? Was it a, spray and pray? Or was it really narrow, focused, and targeted? I had somebody, actually, a couple of friends in the industry were sitting around having a couple of beers one night, talking about some of the recent events, and one said, I wonder what would happen if you were to launch a massive ransomware attack within an organization that really wasn't about the ransomware. That it was a smokescreen. Anybody had to respond to a major ransomware attack? That's a little intense, isn't it? You're doing a lot of scrambling. $1.6? Wow.
They went into their financial records and saw what the company was doing.
Yep.
Making a lot of money, even though that's not necessarily profitable. They felt that they could make the ransoms that much.
So they did some research. Little diligence up front. Right? There's that critical thinking. There's that mindset coming out. Did you ever wonder while you were responding to that ransomware, what else is happening on your network? Right. The guy who proposed this was just a touch on the devious side. He said, wouldn't that make a great smokescreen? Because everybody's launching ransomware. You don't have to be really, talented to do that. You can go out and buy it. You can go lease it. Spray a bunch of that out. And while they're reacting to that, hit them with another attack. Or plant some other code in there that they're not looking for. Again, back to the mindset. Right? Thinking a little bit outside the box. I worked with a really good hardware tester. Was great at, code, embedded code into hardware. And one of the smart meter companies brought him a box and said, hey, we want to see what you can do with this. What they were expecting him to do was to try to break in and reset it, try to lower the numbers on it, Instead, he recognized one of the chips. He said, you know what? I've seen this before. If I overclock this chip just enough, I bet I can make it overheat. And he did. And he wrote a little piece of code. And he launched it into a network of these smart meters. And it caused every one of them to overheat that chip, burn it out, shut the meter off, and shut power down to the facility. Outside of the box thinking, creativity, not what people expect you to do. So how do we respond to this? What do we need to do? Ask somebody in this industry, what keeps you up at night? Are you worried about being hacked? Yeah? Anybody else worried about being hacked? Yeah? Me? Not so much. Who's going to come after me as an individual? And why? Trust me, this helps me sleep at night. That and large quantities of alcohol. I am not, as an individual, a target for someone with that level of sophistication or that type of tools. Now, a lot of us represent organizations that are. And we do have to think along those lines. Right? We have to consider how much do we put into protecting ourselves. Right? There's the old axiom, I don't have to outrun the bear, I just have to outrun you. I don't have to be the toughest target on the web. I just have to be a little bit tougher than the easiest target on the web. Putting on the mindset of a hacker again, what if you, as a hacker, are out trolling and you find this huge firewall with encrypted data behind it, with 3 layers of authentication, all this new-fangled protection? What are you going to think right away? Come on. It's got to be worth something. Nobody's going to put this much money and effort into protecting something unless it's really valuable and worth protecting. So applying an appropriate level of countermeasure is actually a good thing. Overkill may or may not be. Something to consider. So what's hackers look like today? What's changed? What's new? Well, new is a relative term. There are new motivators out there. For example, if you disagree with someone's opinion that they post on social media, does that then make that person a target that you would want to hack? Are you hacking a country, a company, or an individual? If I want to expose you on the web, do I have to hack your PC? Or just your Facebook account? Or Twitter account? We're changing the threat surface. I keep wondering, in the back of my mind, we're all moving to the cloud, are we not? Everything's going to the cloud. Anyone else concerned about the consolidation of the cloud? Because now I don't have to attack 100 different companies to get their data. I just got to attack one. And we need to be really, really good at protecting that. And I'll throw this nugget out there. Folks, do not rely on your cloud provider to provide your security entirely and completely, please. Think about it. When you migrate to the cloud, think about your protection level once it gets there and the fact that it is still your data to protect. And finally, where are we going? What's next? Better, faster, easier tools. You can go out and buy yourself a ransomware package right now. Be careful which site you use, because not all of them are actually there to sell you usable ransomware. Some of them are actually there to see who's going to pay for it. The latest buzzword, biohacking. Heard it? Right? Biohacking means a few different things to a few different people. It could mean actually biological hacking and creating the next virus that's resistant to all of its antibiotics. Or hacking a piece of technology that's embedded in someone's body. Right? Pacemaker, adrenaline pump. Obviously, these are going to be wireless, are they not? Well, yeah, pretty much. Right? You get a pacemaker in now, and I have friends that have pacemakers installed. They go to the doctor comes over with the RFID or the Bluetooth and gets the readings. Right? Those can be hacked. Right? The one that scares me the most is in biohacking now they're talking about actually hacking the brain and how we think and being able to control that. It's bad enough to hack and manipulate technology, but to hack and manipulate people is scary. And if you think about the mindset of a hacker and the motivation of a hacker, there is someone out there that wants to be the first to do that is going to apply the resourcefulness, the out-of-the-box thinking, the persistence and the perseverance to make it happen. And I want to end with one thought and mark this one down. There will be a day when hacking will be used as a tool for murder. Don't know when, don't know how, but it's going to happen. And folks, that scares me. All right, it's 5:30 on a Friday night. It's been a long day. Any questions before we break?
Let's first give a round of applause to Dave for a great talk. Any questions? Yeah,
Sir.
Question up here.
Not really a question, but as much as commentary.
Okay, feel free.
I noticed that you're throwing in some movie references earlier.
Oh yeah.
There's a clip from Down Periscope where
Okay.
the commander or the admiral is talking to the captain, asking, I want a person that thinks like a pirate.
Right.
I want somebody with a tattoo on their junk.
Yep.
Do I have that man? That might be a good clip to add to your slide.
I may have to break that one out.
I might have to add you.
But I'll say this too. Just like the Jolly Roger flying on your boat does not make you a pirate ship, tattoos and hoodies do not make you a hacker. See, I don't have tattoos. I have scars. Scars are just tattoos with better stories. Other questions or thoughts? I got to remember that one. Down Periscope.
I'm going to have to use that on my presentation.
Nobody else?
Okay, great. David, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Now, I did tell folks earlier this morning that I'm a military intelligence officer, and using my limited critical thinking, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I heard you say you might have perpetrated the DNC hack by throwing red herrings out. That's DAVID for the NSA folks across the hall. It's DAVIDBROWN. But on behalf of the BSides Philly team, thank you very much for your talk. And here's a challenge coin.
Oh, thank you so much.
Appreciate your talk.
Appreciate it.